and welcome back to another episode of The Real Deal, our weekly podcast about movies, entertainment, and anything alike. I am Noah Moores, and as always, I am with my co-host Teddy. How you doing today, Teddy?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Noah?
I'm making it through the day.
Feel that.
So, this week, as you know, Teddy, is going to be a little bit different. There wasn't much that happened in regards to news. It was Thanksgiving week. You have a good Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I did.
Eat lots of food?
I did. Oh, so much food. Ooh, love that turkey.
Well, with that being what happened this week, I don't think a lot really came out in regards to news. There was a lot of movies, as
there were no new trailers either.
No new trailers,
from what
really.
I noticed. No
significant news to talk about. So, with so much, because there was a lot of movies that came out this week. Obviously, we had Knives Out come out, which I know you saw last week, and then we also had The Irishman, which came out on Netflix.
I actually saw Knives Out a second time, which kind of helped enhance. Yeah, I saw it on my birthday. And,
perfect.
It helped. I don't know. It was better the second time. That's all I'm
It was also your birthday. That's right. Yeah. Your birthday was the day after Thanksgiving. Did you also have a good
Black
birthday?
Friday?
Did you buy? Is that how you bought the phone? You got a new phone, I think.
Yeah, Black Friday deals. Yeah,
can't pass up
I
on
needed it. Exactly. You cannot.
You didn't see anything else though. Because I know today we're going to be talking about Knives Out and The Irishman, but other movies came out. Did you see Queen and Slim or anything?
I didn't get to see that, and then I also wanted to see Honey Boy because that's playing here.
Oh,
I
you
didn't
finally
get to
can see
it.
it?
Yeah, I can. I think I'm gonna go this week, but yeah, I didn't see anything else that was released. I watched another movie that was released on Netflix, but
what was that?
It was I Lost My Body, that animated movie.
No, I haven't heard of it.
It's really well done, but we won't talk about that.
So let's just start talking about the movie that we are going to start with, which is Knives Out, which you just said you saw twice. How was it the second time?
Yeah, like I was saying, it was one of those movies that I honestly could see it a third time and still find some more stuff and still be entertained. And I don't know, it's just such a good film, and the layers just come undone when you see it the second time, and everything is so set up. And
it definitely seems like a great movie that would be better on the second viewing.
I was kind of surprised. I was a little worried because I like seeing movies twice if I like it, but usually it's not always better the second time for me. But movie like this, you're able to dissect it better and see where he was coming from a directorial standpoint. And I don't know. I think it might be his best movie that he's made.
Rian Johnson's.
Yeah. We don't need to get into that list, but I think so. I think he learned a lot from... especially Brick, which is similar in a way. It's a neo-noir film.
I remember you saying that you had a lot to think about after seeing it the first time. Was there maybe something you didn't like about it when you first saw it?
The film itself was just... I think it was just the fact, and I won't spoil any... I don't know if we should do a spoiler talk, but just the big twist at the end, or how it's all revealed... threw me off a little, and it didn't.
It's a lot of exposition.
In the last 15 minutes. Oh my god, it's so much jam-packed stuff, which he does so well to fully explain everything. But it's a lot to kind of take in. So on that second viewing, knowing what's gonna happen made it a million times better.
I feel like on the second viewing, that exposition scene at the end where everything's explained, I feel like that would kind of grow tiresome because. You know exactly how everything happened.
Yeah, but the thing for me, I think it could for some viewers, but for me, it helped me realize, like I was saying, everything was so fleshed out. Rian Johnson had everything planned to a T. Everything was fully written well. And that exposition just shows that. So, I don't know. Most people wouldn't get that from watching that scene, but...
Yeah, that was kind of my biggest gripe about the movie. Along with that, we're not gonna jump into spoilers or anything, but the guy who ends up doing it, I think, is actually pretty obvious.
It is. My mom called it out halfway through the movie, so.
Well, and because the character doesn't even show up till halfway through the movie.
Yeah,
so
and that's the other thing.
Usually, that's always just a straight up call. You'd be able to call it if the character doesn't show up for a while. There's probably a reason they're hiding him. Or just because of that mere fact, I found it just incredibly obvious.
Yeah, like they do a big twist in the middle of the movie, basically, that tries to throw you off. And
There's a lot of twists in the movie.
it was funny because there's this lady next to me the second time I saw it, and she kept kind of, those people that just shout out things, and they're like, ooh, or, he did it, or she literally thought that one of the children was involved in the murder, and I was like, no.
I actually had someone similar in my showing as well. It was an older lady, and she was maybe like 2 or 3 rows down, but I guarantee the whole theater could hear it, because every time something like a new piece of evidence came about or something was unveiled, she would go, oh,
Yep, I had that in both viewings for me, so
it's just like almost like those old people. They're just like, because they're probably more accustomed to the whodunit genre because it was more popular back in their day. But
yeah, exactly. And
it's just maybe they came out for this, and that it's just sparked the old days. They're
well, and that's the thing. Well, the cool thing, I listened to Ryan Johnson talk about the film itself and how he was fully inspired by Agatha Christie novels, and it makes a lot of sense. But I think that's what you're saying, is that whole crowd of those people that like, what's that movie that came out not too long ago? The Agatha Christie one with Kenneth Branagh.
I probably wouldn't be able to tell you.
Murder on the Orient Express. Yes. That's
yeah.
So that's the kind of crowd it drew too, because it does look like an old school whodunit, and people love, a lot of that older crowd loves whodunits, but it's also interesting hearing that that's what his inspiration was this very popular writer named Agatha Christie, which most of you should know, but
I'm not terribly aware of Agatha Christie.
I mean, most people haven't read it, but her novels and stories are just well-known murder mystery whodunits, and they're set up in a certain way where you have the big reveal at the end. So he kind of adapted the storytelling, but didn't want to use the big reveal at the end, like pull and do something different, which I actually enjoyed. But
what did you think of the cast?
The cast was perfect. I think there's a few people I could have seen more of. I really enjoyed Michael Shannon when he was on, but I think it was perfectly cast, and even Christopher Plummer, the guy that plays the old man,
I thought he was going to be in it so much more.
He was in it more than I expected,
really?
Honestly. But I mean, the standout for me was Ana de Armas, if that's how you say it.
De Armas. Yeah,
De Armas, but oh my God, she's beautiful.
Oh yeah.
First of all, and she that role was just written for her, it seemed like, and she just got fully invested. I thought she was fantastic. And
I hope
Daniel Craig, but
Daniel Craig, but I hope she gets more starting roles after this, because I kind of mainly found out about Blade Runner. I fell in love with her after that movie. And then of course she's gonna be in Bond next year.
Yeah, she's the Bond
like the main
girl,
Bond
right?
girl, like back again with Daniel Craig.
Well,
so I'm hoping
that's funny though. They must have some good chemistry now.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that after this movie and maybe even Bond's, she just takes off. I know she's like this Hispanic actress. Maybe she'll be able to break out into more mainstream things. 'Cause I would love to see her in a lot more.
Well, she just every time she was on screen, she just kind of she just grabs your attention, and I mean, not just because of her looks, but she's also just so invested in her roles. And even in Blade Runner, she did have a smaller role, but she was really good in that.
She's great. What did you think about Daniel Craig's accent? Because I know I read some people. Yeah, I read a lot of people didn't like it, and that it takes some getting used to. But I didn't think it was as crazy as a lot of people made it out to be.
Okay, so a lot of people didn't see Logan Lucky. Did you see that?
Yeah, fuck yeah. Logan Lucky's awesome.
That's what got me used to his accent, because he did a similar Southern accent, and it's not as...
That's true.
It didn't have as big of a draw. That one's almost a little more
wackier, I would say.
It might be, and he was a wackier character in that too, I think. But I think that helped prepare him for this role in a sense with the accent too, because I mean, I feel like I would have been thrown off if I hadn't seen him in Logan Lucky do that accent because
I mean,
we're
I
so used
completely
to
even
his.
forgot about that movie.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
No, well, I actually enjoyed that a lot. So.
I love the movie. Like I've seen it probably like 2 or 3 times. It's just
Yeah.
when I went into Knives Out, didn't even occur to me that Daniel Craig had done this accent before.
And I think he did it well. I think I love him. I'll let him do any accent he wants. I really don't care. So I can see the gripe that people had about it, but no.
I just thought it was a little too out there, I think, was what I was kind of seeing, which...
Well, then go watch Logan Lucky, people, and maybe you'll change your mind.
I mean, I hope that most people have seen Logan Lucky.
It seems like that movie was underrated at the time, though. I could be wrong.
I mean, I'd have to look at like box office numbers and whatnot, but yeah, it's not really mentioned nowadays as much as like Ocean's 11 or anything like that.
That's very true. Also, quick question to you: would you put Knives Out in your top like 10 or 20 movies of the year?
I think I ended up doing that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I mean, if I'm looking at like my top 10, like I still don't have like that many films that are actually I consider good. Like yeah, it's right now it's at like my number 4 spot. It's right behind Once Upon a Time, Parasite, and Waves.
Yeah, it's in my top 10. But yeah, I just thought it was one of the best, just most entertaining films of the year that I watched. So
remarkably entertaining. There's like barely ever a dull moment about it.
And it's one of those movies it's really good, but it'll borderline on awards and all of that. I just don't know where that will fall, but it is a very good movie. So
yeah, and if anything, to me, what it proved is while I do like The Last Jedi, I am one of those people. I don't have a problem with it.
I like it too. So
I wish that Rian Johnson would actually just kind of stick to more stuff like this instead of going back to Star Wars. Because isn't he doing like the Star Wars trilogy next? Is that kind of what's planned?
Yeah, I mean, that was the news, but I even just looked at his IMDb, and he's writing 3 movies for it, and he's set to direct 1. But apparently, from what I heard from Disney, is that they're not planning on releasing Star Wars movies for a bit, like after this movie. But they're
taking a break after this one.
I think
their whole game plan with Star Wars makes no sense.
No, it's all up in the air because I think they have success with some movies, and then they're like, okay, let's move on with this project. So I think they're gonna look at the success of The Mandalorian and look at try to. Then make they got
the Obi-Wan stuff.
Stuff too. Well, that's the thing. I think they were saying they were gonna work on the shows like in priority over the movies, but then I can see them starting a new. Like,
I love that we somehow shifted to Disney Star Wars. It happens. It just happens. I'm just saying, like, I want Rian Johnson to make more stuff like this. Like Rian Johnson's original films, while I do think The Last Jedi is great and all, his original films, they're something else. They're fucking great.
Looper is one of my favorites.
Looper's one of the best original science fiction stories, I think, in the last 10 or so years. It's great.
You know what would be cool is if he was able, I mean, he can take the whodunit genre and do a sci-fi twist with it or something like that. And I think that would be so cool,
fucking cool. That would be so fucking cool.
And I did see, to kind of wrap up the Knives Out talk, but he talked to, I forgot who, but someone wrote an article about how he could make a whole universe of Knives Out movies just with Daniel Craig, and he said that's a possibility. And what do you think about that? Like if he were,
I don't like that.
Like the Conjuring style where he goes from like,
no, I don't like it when I didn't like it when the Conjuring did it, and I wouldn't like that if they did it with this.
They're making a 3rd movie, so
Conjuring.
Yeah,
I mean, of course they are. I mean, the first 2 aren't that bad, but like it's where they did the spin-offs and like the Patrick Wilson and it's just I don't. Yeah, Knives Out is great. I don't need any other movies from it, but I mean, anyone who's listened to this podcast knows my opinions on sequels, spin-offs, and whatnot. So it should come as no surprise that I'm against that.
I think it's an interesting idea. I don't think it should be done. I don't think he would even want to do that, honestly. He doesn't seem, I don't know. He also is invested in Star Wars, so I don't know, but
Yeah, but they're original stories, and I'm sure every filmmaker probably dreams one day of making a Star Wars film.
Yeah.
I don't know. So why not?
Never know.
I mean, I love Knives Out. I think that's all I really have to say about it.
Yep.
What about you?
Yeah, I think that's it for Knives Out.
So another big movie came out, big in many ways, in length and in crowd reaction. The Irishman.
Yeah.
So, what did you think about that movie?
I loved it. I think. Okay, so we're going to talk about his top 5 movies. It did not fall into that for me, but I thought it was a fantastic movie. I thought it was well made. It shows his age. It shows his maturity. It shows that he didn't want to make another crazy rock and roll gangster movie, and he wanted to make
it's a
something
nice tale
old
about
school.
friendship.
Yeah, exactly. And the themes underneath it with loyalty and friendship, and even the whole story with his daughter was interesting. And
it's not that like Scorsese isn't making mature movies, but this film was just ultra mature. Like,
no,
just
well, that's the thing. He
slow
stripped.
tension.
I mean, even Goodfellas can be mature, and all those movies, but he stripped away the crazy soundtracks and ultra violent scenes and made it more real, but with a lot of that violence and stuff that goes along with it. But
and when I say mature, I don't mean like, it's earn that hard R. I more mean it's like grounded. It realizes what it is. It's a slow burn movie, and there's not even really a climax. I would say it's all story, and it wants for 3.5 hours. It wants you to pay attention.
Yeah, and I do need to watch it again.
Yeah.
So I
think I'd pick up.
But
I think I took, because with a 3.5 hour movie, like it's nice to take luxuries, because if you have to take a piss break, you can actually pause the movie. So I think I paused it maybe 2 or 3 times, but I mean there were only like 30-second breaks anyway, so it's not even like that big of a deal.
Yeah, and you can watch the movie in chunks if you need to, but. Talking about that,
okay. I'm not going to be one of those people. I think I know what you're going.
Yeah, okay. I just want to bring up the miniseries thing, because we're splitting it up into like episodes, because that is so dumb. There's a difference between taking breaks, like what you were saying, and splitting it up into episodes. Like you don't split a movie.
Yeah,
into
and
an
I think the general consensus of people are against that.
Yeah,
I think it was mainly just like 2 or 3 people on Twitter posting this photo.
This
like,
one guy posted it, some people retweeted it, and then everyone lashed out. And then I saw stuff about it on Facebook too. Like, oh, this guide how to make it into a miniseries. I'm like, no, don't.
It's the binging generation. It's ridiculous. Like a 3.5 hour movie. Yeah, it's Scorsese. Yeah, it's slow.
We all sat through Avengers Endgame, which is almost
right.
the same.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up. It's like a 3 hour and 2 minute movie, and people were applauding that. People loved how long it was. And then Chapter 2 came out, and that was 3 hours.
Yeah, that was I think that was a little longer than Avengers. No, maybe
it
not.
No. I think it was a little shorter, but it was basically
okay.
right there, and it had no right to be 3 hours. Maybe people could even make an argument that Avengers didn't have the right to be 3 hours. I think it's fine at 3 hours, but like this movie, while I do kind of think the pacing and the length can hurt it sometimes, it earned its 3.5 hour runtime. Like it was trying to tell a long scaling epic story.
Yeah, and
when you're doing that, 2.5 hours may not cut it.
Yeah, and well, that's the thing with Scorsese and Netflix. I love that they gave him the time he needed, the time to figure out the length and let him do whatever and release it whenever, because that's how you get the best products. So.
Oh, absolutely. And if Netflix wants to keep, giving him money to make the movies that he wants to make, because I know that Silence, like his film Silence, he tried making that for like 10 years, but no one would fund it. So like he has all these movies, I'm sure, that no one wants to fund, that he wants to make, and if someone will fund him, he'll make a great movie, I'm sure. which he exactly did with this one.
And I think I from what I've seen, it's been successful too on Netflix. So I don't think he'll have.
Yeah,
any
I don't know the
problem.
exact numbers, but
We'll see the numbers I think soon. But I know, I mean, it's been on my popular list, top of it, like every time I look, and I feel like
I
a
mean,
lot of people
film
are
Twitter
watching it, so
is all fucking over the
I
Irishman.
mean, yeah,
Like, I swear I can't scroll through my Twitter feed without seeing something about Joe Pesci or
yeah,
Al Pacino. I swear I see so many cocksucker memes, and which doesn't make any sense if you haven't seen the
No.
movie, but
yeah,
cocksucker memes. I mean, yeah, I think the movie's really great. Like I said, I do think the runtime hurts it a little bit. There were times where it was a little hard to follow because I didn't know necessarily where the story was going. That's why I think a second rewatch may be better.
yeah, yeah, I agree.
Because there were times where a certain scene would be going somewhere, and I'm like, where is this going? And then it didn't really have any relevance to the overall story.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like an extra scene to add kind of dimension, I guess. Which honestly, it probably won't be a problem if I watch it a second time.
Yeah,
It's
and
just the first time it was a little hard trying to pick up where this movie was
and
going.
what he usually seems to do with his movies when he does time jumps is he likes to put the place and date and time and all that stuff and update you. Seems like he started doing that at the beginning of the movie and just was like, fuck it, I don't want to do that anymore. And you're just gonna figure out
it jumps
and
all over
the confusing
place.
thing about the jumps too is with which we'll get into the not CGI but the work done on De Niro and the de-aging stuff,
or as you called it last week, deep faking.
Deep aging, I don't know, but
de-aging. Yeah.
but yeah,
I mean, I'm sure there's an actual studio.
well, that's what kind of got me too, is that you would jump like towards the beginning you see De Niro and Pesci going on a road trip with their wives, and you see them jump back and forth with that, but then it starts jumping to when they're a little older, but then you start to figure out
The faces kind of like
they
mesh,
do.
like the middle-aged De Niro, and you're like, okay,
you're
wait,
like, are we above where he was?
present,
Yeah,
or are
that's
we?
what was.
It was a little
And they
weird.
do a weird jump to where he is now on that trip, and he doesn't explain to you, okay, so now we're back in the present on this trip. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but I feel like he kind of got lost in the process of making it all, and he forgot to kind of update the viewer.
Yeah, and it's certainly something that audiences are probably going to be questioning just like you did. So I know I watched it with my girlfriend, and both of us a couple times were just kind of like, all right, where are we right now? Do you know? And like, eventually we did figure it out. It took us like a minute or two, but like, it's a little hard to, in a 3.5 hour movie, to kind of keep up exactly where you are in the timeline. Also, there was a lot less like young De Niro than I thought. Like the World War
I thought we were going to see more of him in the war too. That's what I was, and that weird scene.
One scene.
Yeah, that scene was weird to me because I thought, I don't know, like why out of everything, why do we need to see him just burying these bodies?
It seemed unnecessary.
It did, but it also, I mean, because he was doing was just telling a war story to Joe Pesci, but then he was like, "That's all I got. That's the only war story I got to tell." Like,
and
what?
that's kind of like the point I was trying to make earlier, is that like there's a couple scenes that just kind of feel weird, and you're just like, where is this going? Is this scene going to be more important later on? Is there things I should be dissecting from this scene, or is it just a kind of like a throwaway scene just for character
Well, and it did
development?
feel that way
Like,
with some characters too, like the ones that would pop up and be like, "Yep, he died," and blah blah blah, and so you know that he's gonna die soon. And it even did that. Didn't it do that with? No, it was I think it was Harvey Keitel, but I wanted to say it was one of the main characters.
I don't know. There was so many characters.
Yeah, I don't know, but
But I mean, that's just a lot of. We're kind of nitpicking it at this point. There was like plenty of great things to go about it. Like the cinematography was great, all the acting was great, the story overall was great,
and
a lot of the symbolism.
Well, the symbolism
it's a great film.
in general, that was one of the strongest things. Is he was able to tell some of these important stories or just feelings through even Anna Paquin not even saying a word, which there's a lot of memes on that. And the silence.
So many.
20. That one made me laugh really hard. But yeah, that was a good one. But then the whole thing with Pacino's character and how he had his quirks and leaving the door open, all that stuff coming back, and I thought it was.
Oh yeah.
He just did a really good job of showing how these things that people do can just work wonders without having to say anything.
I mean, this film, it's asking for a deep dive. You could probably spend a good hour or two dissecting every aspect of the film because there's a lot to take in. And I think that's what makes it great. I think it's certainly worth watching it a second time. Whereas like Avengers Endgame, for example, another 3-hour movie. I liked seeing that a second time. I did see it a second time in theaters.
Too.
Because it's a fun time. It's a fun movie to watch, especially with all the crazy shit. 10 years of world building and whatnot. It was a fun movie. The Irishman is a good movie that has so much in it that I think a second viewing will help it even more.
It is extremely entertaining. I mean, it does slow down, like you said, but it does move fast for what it is, even when it does get slow.
There, It Chapter 2, I would say, felt longer than The Irishman did, just because It Chapter 2 didn't need to be 3 hours.
I
agree. It moved at a very slow pace.
It was overstuffed, and I love the first movie. The second one, I just couldn't even. I liked it, but I didn't love it. So
yeah, and it's just like with this movie, The Irishman. It moved fast, and I thought it did it well.
Well, and one of the strongest things about it was, I mean, I love De Niro. I thought he was fantastic in it, just from all angles, and it really felt like he channeled his younger self. But that's the thing I noticed with that movie is, I think until the day Scorsese dies, they will be making movies together. Like he's one of those
I think they're
people.
the same age too.
I think
they're
they
both
are,
76.
I just feel like they were. I mean, born to make movies together. They were born to.
I mean, how long has it been since they've been in a movie together, though?
It's been a while, but it feels like he handpicks these people. Like, he uses Leo a lot, DiCaprio, and he seemed like he would use that for certain roles, or De Niro would fit into a certain role. And did you watch
I think they're both going to be in Scorsese's next movie, too.
They're...
Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, isn't it based on that book?
The serial killer book?
Called. Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called either. I'll look it up real quick. What were you saying?
Did you watch there's a little like after thing that you could watch for The Irishman where they talk to
I actually didn't
all
know.
the cast.
Was it worth
you
it?
should check it out. I mean, there's some cool just little stories on how they cast, how he decided to cast people and bring Pesci out of retirement, and he even said to him, he was just like, this isn't going to be your normal role. This isn't going to be the crazy character you normally play, like in Goodfellas or Casino. And he wanted to play Tony Pro, and he kept begging to play Tony Pro. And
it was De Niro?
Joe Pesci.
Oh, Pesci.
Was begging. Yeah, because he was in retirement. Like, he came out of retirement to do this role.
I actually wouldn't have minded have seen him in that role. That would have been really.
That's what I was saying, but Scorsese was just like, nope, this is the role you're gonna play. This is what I want you to play, and he was like, okay. And
yeah, I mean, I probably should have watched that before the podcast, but after that 3.5 hour film, it's just I didn't really want to keep watching more after I finished it because it was already like 12 o'clock when we finished, and I was like, yeah, we're nearing bedtime here.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all.
And I did look it up. The movie that they're making together, Robert De Niro, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Scorsese, it's called Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oh, okay.
It's a cool
it's just
title.
those two cast in it so far?
I think so.
Okay.
But it looks like it. I'll read the quick synopsis. It is based off a true crime novel of the same name, and it follows grisly murders of the Osage Indiana tribe who became incredibly wealthy when oil was discovered under their land in Oklahoma in the 1920s. So,
interesting.
Sounds like a weird, like, there'll be blood type of thing, but...
Yeah, like he's going to channel he'll bring Daniel Day-Lewis back.
Oh my god, wouldn't that be something? A movie with Robert De Niro, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Daniel Day-Lewis, directed by Scorsese.
It's almost been done. He could have had De Niro in Gangs of New York.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been. I mean, that movie's great no matter what. But
It is, yeah.
and I'm not gonna complain about the casting in that film because it's on
No,
point.
but it's just it was close to happening, is what I'm saying. But we'll get there maybe.
I mean, at this point, we're talking about all the sorts of different like Scorsese movies and his future movies. Do we want to just go ahead and go on to our ranks?
Yeah, let's talk about the top 5 Scorsese movies.
You want to go first? You want me to go?
Yeah, I'll go first. Let's just go from 5 to 1. This is a movie I actually told you to watch this week. I'm not sure if you did.
I think I might know which one it is. Yeah.
It's honestly it's okay. I'll just say it's Cape Fear,
Cape Fear.
and it's one of my favorites just because it's so out there. It might honestly not be one of his best movies, but in my opinion, it's one of my favorites that he's made because it felt personal. It's the closest thing he's done to a horror film. It's to sum it up, it's about Nick Nolte plays this lawyer that helps get Robert De Niro out of jail, and he's this murderer. But it ends up going the wrong way, and he ends up kind of screwing over De Niro. And I'm not going to go into full details, but De Niro starts stalking the lawyer's family, and he starts being creepy with the family and starts threatening the family, and it goes down a really dark path. But yeah, it's a really well-made film. It has a lot of tension. Scorsese is so creepy in it. I mean, sorry, not Scorsese. De Niro. De Niro. There's a lot of good performances. The tension is good. I honestly think it's a better thriller than Shutter Island.
His other almost horror film.
Yeah, and it just Cape Fear felt more like a horror film in the sense of like almost slasher film in a way, but it just I don't know, felt like its own thing.
Yeah, so. I wish I got around to it. I chose to watch The King of Comedy instead of Cape Fear, and I kind of
that's fair. I mean, either one, but
there was like only one day that I actually had time to watch movies, and that was kind of the day that I chose, and I only got around to one. So yeah, unfortunately, I did not get around to Cape Fear, and most people probably have seen Cape Fear, so.
Yeah, and it's funny because a lot of people would probably not think it's a Scorsese movie either because it just doesn't feel like it at all. And that's the other thing I liked about it. But I mean, he's done some out there things that have kind of separated himself, kind of like that, Shutter Island, Bringing Out the Dead, a couple other things, but it's just, I don't know.
I think you've seen a lot more Scorsese than I have.
I've tried to watch as much as possible. I watched
he has so many
bunch
goddamn
this
films.
week, but yeah, I'm trying to keep it like in his main, because he also has directed a ton of documentaries.
Oh,
and
okay.
There was an announcement that he's going to do another documentary coming up. So I think he said it was about something in the 60s. I don't know. Don't quote me. I'm not even going to say more because I don't know. But
all right. Well, my top 5. I'm sure maybe it's on your list. It's a newer film. A lot of my top 5 is going to be more of his newer, like in the 2000s.
Mine is not.
So mine's The Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh.
Okay. Is that on your list at all?
Nope.
I didn't think it would be.
Nope.
I mean, it's a relatively recent film.
Movie,
most people know it. I love it. I think it's
overrated.
Endlessly entertaining. Oh wow.
Well, okay. Let's just start. It's one of those movies that you could grab a bunch of like casual moviegoers and they would say they've seen it and it's one of their favorite movies. I'm not even kidding. It's one of those things.
I know.
Like, I love Wolf of Wall Street. I love Step Brothers. I love
Fight
know
Club.
What I'm saying? Yeah. So, and Fight Club is actually one of my favorite movies, but
I know the
it's
stigma
not.
of putting that, I was expecting that.
Yeah.
Of putting that on my list. I was aware of what I was doing. I would not say it is one of my best or one of my favorite movies. I just think it's one of Scorsese's best, and I think it's just wildly entertaining with great performances all around. And I've seen it like maybe 3 or 4 times, and it never gets old to me. So.
Well, the cool thing about that movie is it has kind of the feel of like Casino and Goodfellas and storytelling and craziness and his just natural way of telling like that kind of rock and roll storyline in that sense. And I did enjoy it. I don't think it's one of his best movies.
Hey, that's why it's at 5 for me.
It is, yeah. Fair enough.
It almost... Do you have like any honorable mentions? Because like don't want to spend too much time on it because it
That's
was
fair.
this other movie, and it was The Wolf of Wall Street that I just couldn't figure out which to put into 5. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's on your list. Honestly, I doubt it will be, but it's Silence. I love Silence as well.
I had trouble with his recent films. I remember seeing Silence in theaters, and it was I thought of it as a challenging watch, but it was so rewarding and it was
Mhm.
so well made. It's not for everyone at all. It didn't make my list, but it was fighting for the top 5. It's just his most recent movies, and I'll say another one that didn't make it, which is kind of more recent, is The Departed, which people
Oh.
love. I know. I actually really do like that movie. I had a hard time with that, but his older movies do more for me. So
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. I won't talk too much about Silence. But The Wolf of Wall Street and Silence were basically right there next to each other. You want to go with your number 4?
yeah, my number 4 is Taxi Driver. I feel like it should have been higher, but I feel like actually shouldn't have been. But
So it is on my list, so I'll go ahead and reveal that as well. That one's in my number 2 spot.
ooh, I had a feeling, but
Yeah, that one's higher up. You can go ahead and talk about it though.
I mean, it's a fantastic movie. It's one of his best. It might be his best. I don't know. It's just tough because he makes.
Yeah, and I haven't seen a lot of Robert De Niro's performances in Scorsese's movies because there's so many, but he's remarkable in that one.
I think that it might be one of his best. This week I watched Mean Streets, which is one of his earlier movies, and it's a gangster flick. But I think it came out right before Taxi Driver, and it shows De Niro kind of flexing that role. But I think that might be his best Scorsese role, maybe best role ever. I don't know. But
He was good in The King of Comedy. I will say that.
He-
it's just
he
it's
was
fresh
so
on my
good in
mind.
that.
That's the
And-
only reason I bring it up.
talking about the two really fast, after you've seen both of them, do you see the comparison for Joker?
Absolutely, yeah.
Especially
with the King of Comedy, yeah.
Because, I mean, the whole storyline is literally King of Comedy and then mixed in some Taxi Driver.
Mm-hmm. Without a
It's-
doubt.
I don't
Like
know.
there were many times throughout that movie that I was just constantly thinking like, oh, Joker did that. Joker did that.
The whole scene at the end of Joker with the whole thing with De Niro, that
Mhm.
was literally a darker version of what happened in King of Comedy.
Yeah, essentially.
In a sense. Yes, there was kidnapping in King of Comedy. Yes, there was more whatever, but it was
the ending
like,
was different, and the ending is one of the things I had a problem with. But
yeah, but it's just interesting to see that heavy inspiration of both
yeah.
of those movies.
without a doubt.
And yeah, I mean, Taxi Driver is a classic. Everyone should see it. I think I don't know. It's so well done. So, but yeah, that was my number 4.
So my number 4, I have a feeling, is definitely on your list. If it's not, I have no idea what's on your list. But Goodfellas.
Okay. Yeah, it is on my list. I'm not gonna
Okay.
tell you where, but yeah,
It's
on my
probably
list.
number 1, isn't it?
No, I'm just not gonna tell you where it is.
I told you we're taxi drivers. I feel like you owe me this.
Okay, fine. It's number 1, but we'll get there.
I knew it. Because you did that with our last ranking film.
I
You were
know,
like, I'm
I
not going
know,
to tell you
I'm
where it
bad with
is. And
this,
then it
I'm
was
bad
number
with
1. Yeah, that's
I'm
my number
trying,
4.
okay.
I mean, it's an overall great film. And it took me a long ass time to watch it. My friend Luke is the one who showed it to me. You know Luke.
Luke.
Yeah. He probably doesn't listen to this, but
yeah,
hello, Luke.
he should.
And he's the one who showed it to me because he's a big Scorsese like diehard fan.
Yeah.
And every time I told him I hadn't seen Goodfellas, he was like, "You motherfucker, we're gonna buy like a box of wine and we're gonna fucking watch it." So that's what we did. And
yeah,
it was
that's how
fucking
me
great.
and him really connected, is movies and stuff too. And yeah, I would love for him to listen to this podcast, but
Maybe I'll tell him. I'll be like, "Hey, buddy, me and Teddy
and we
talked about
just
you on the
talked-
playlist.
Yeah.
We talked trash on you. Luke is a horrible person.
Yeah, Luke sucks.
Let's get him on the podcast.
Yeah, that'd be fun. He has some good opinions, honestly. So.
He does have some good opinions. So we're not talking
Um,
trash, but you know.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, Goodfellas, I think it's just like I was saying about Taxi Driver, it is a classic film, especially as a gangster film.
Mm-hmm.
Some
I think
people call it the best gangster film, which it's not, but it's one of my favorites.
I do think it's a more well-rounded, put-together movie as compared to Taxi Driver. But I do have Taxi Driver higher because overall enjoyment level, I did like Taxi Driver more. I do remember thinking a couple parts in Goodfellas dragged a little bit, but overall, it's still a fucking solid-ass film.
Yeah, and there's something about the way the story is told in that, and the soundtrack is fantastic, and the violence. I don't know. I just love that movie. I've seen it so many times, so that's why it was ranked so high for me. I kind of grew up watching it, and that was one of those movies that kind of got me into being interested into cinema because it was just so unique compared to all these other movies I was seeing, you know?
Yeah,
So.
you gotta respect the movies that get you into cinema. You know?
Yeah.
You
Exactly.
can't leave those behind.
And that's why this top 5 for me is more of a favorites than a best of, because I had to think about it, and I was like, yeah, and you know, some of these movies might, like, even Taxi Driver might be better than my top 3, but it's just ranking the favorites is kind of what I was doing, I guess. But
I mean, yeah. We're talking about like a masterful filmmaker here, so like all of his films are incredibly well fucking made. And I think you could pick any one of the movies, maybe besides Hugo, I don't know, and put it in your top 5. And no judgment.
Exactly.
One bit.
Well, you could do this era of Scorsese or pre-2000s, and that's
he's been making movies for so goddamn long.
My list is all movies before 2000s. So.
Oh wow! All right, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Raging Bull.
That's not even on mine.
What? No. I think that might be one of his best movies in general. Next to like Taxi Driver, yeah, it's just so well made.
Yeah, and whenever people reference De Niro in Scorsese films, they constantly always go to Taxi Driver or Raging Bull. It's one of those
tough
two.
Because Raging Bull, it's a different role for him, but it's one of his more... He just channels that character so well, and it's just, I don't know. It's different, but I think I can see why people would prefer that role over it, because a lot of people say it's his best, and... it's tough for me, though.
I mean,
the movie itself is so good, and I love Joe Pesci in Raging Bull, too, and...
You can't go wrong with it, that's really...
No. Yeah. And the way it's shot, the way it looks, the black and white, just everything.
Screams classic.
Yes.
It's pinnacle Scorsese, that's for sure. As well... Huh?
Yeah. Oh, never mind.
I was going to say, as well as my number 3, which apparently is not on your list, The Departed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do love it. Just didn't make my list, so.
I mean, I think that's another kind of film bro pick, along with Wolf of Wall Street. But I think The Departed actually 1,000,000%, it's fine. Like, I think it's a fantastic movie that everyone I think loves,
and it's one of my favorite soundtracks in a movie. I mean, it's also one of classic rock.
I think it's one of the best cast ensembles ever. It's remarkably cast. It's and amazing how many people are in that.
Well, and that's the thing he does best is he can get these ensembles and use everyone to what they need to be used for perfectly. And that's what's great about it. You don't watch his movies and you're like, oh, like. Blah blah didn't get enough screen time. Like, I never think that when I watch his movies.
No, I think the only time I could think about that was like Liam Neeson in Silence, but
he was. I thought he was in that a lot. I saw it one time.
He's gone for most of it.
Oh, he's okay. I forgot his. Yeah, okay, never mind. I forgot the whole. Yeah.
Andrew Garfield and Adam Driver are kind of the more main people of that movie,
and they were both really good.
And Adam Driver's not even in it that much either. It's more of Andrew Garfield's movie.
Yeah.
Anyways, The Departed. I don't feel bad about putting it in my top 3. I think it's remarkable.
Yeah, and I don't blame you. I had a hard time because I wanted to put it at my top 5. It probably would have made it in top 3 if I really thought about it, but I don't know.
Okay.
Just doesn't work for me in there. Sorry.
That's fine. What's your 2?
So this kind of ties into my number 1, which you guys know now, but Casino, and I rewatched it recently, and I think it's one of Scorsese's best movies. And
I have not seen Casino.
What? I thought you've seen that, or else I would have told you to
No.
watch Casino. Oh.
I have not seen Casino.
Well, Casino, it plays like it's a spiritual sequel to Goodfellas, but in Vegas. Like it.
Gotcha.
Same feel in storytelling. It's definitely more of like a love story in a sense, which I actually really enjoyed seeing him do that whole gangster type of feel of a movie, but with a true love story in the center. And it's the same kind of roles from De Niro and Pesci that you get normally, but Pesci does his crazy kind of Goodfellas character, which is where you can kind of draw the comparisons, and the pacing and everything is very reminiscent to Goodfellas, but it also felt like its own thing. And that's what I really liked about it.
You know, I'm sure my list would be very different if maybe I had seen films like Casino or Cape Fear.
I don't think Cape Fear would be on your list, but I think Casino could possibly be. And I feel like this Casino is also underrated. I think a lot of people look at Goodfellas and say, "Oh yeah, that's such a good." I mean, it's the same type of movie. It is a gangster movie at the core.
Yeah.
These gangsters from Jersey go take over Vegas, and.
So, we've talked about your number 2, and we know what your number 1 is. There is one movie that is missing from yours, and it is my number 1. Do you have an idea what it is?
No, I'm blanking. No.
You watched it this week.
I did. Oh, The Aviator.
The Aviator.
And that movie, I actually really, really enjoyed it. It did remind me a bit of Irishman in way of storytelling.
I can absolutely see that.
And, yeah.
I don't think it gets talked about enough. I know that it's probably an unpopular opinion to have that as like my most favorite Scorsese movie, but I think it's a really great film. I think it's paced incredibly. I think it's one of Leonardo DiCaprio's best performances ever.
By far. Once you see him just descend into like craziness, I don't think I've seen, like, he's comparable to like Christian Bale and how he transforms himself in his roles. Like, it's just
it's like if there's movies that if people were to ask me like, hey, what Scorsese movies should I watch? There are movies that I'd be like, well, have you seen a movie of his before? Otherwise, I'd recommend stuff like, The Departed, Goodfellas, Taxi Driver. But when it comes to underrated films of his that like maybe just don't get talked about as much as they probably should, I think The Aviator is 100% that. Because I think it's just, I don't know, you hadn't seen it up until last week.
Well, and that's the issue. A lot of those middle of the, like, from 2005 to 2010, I just kind of missed a bunch of movies, like There Will Be Blood and that and other things, and I guess that came out in 2004, but what you know what I mean. But yeah, it was interesting watching that, and then watching it kind of back to back with The Irishman and seeing all of that. I think if I had seen it previously, I think it may have fallen in my top 5, just it being so fresh on my mind. I don't know how I feel, but yeah, it is a fantastic movie though. And I'm glad you kind of told me to watch that because I would have watched something else. So
I mean, yeah, it's my number 1 for a reason. I think that concludes the list.
I guess the way to wrap it up is watch all those movies we listed, even the ones we didn't make the list, because in general, his movies are just all worth watching from what we've seen. So,
and we're going to have to figure out what we're going to be talking about next week, because there's not much that terribly comes out next week. We could talk about Playmobil, the movie. We can talk about Playmobil.
That's the only thing that comes out?
No. The Aeronauts. I think that movie with, God, I always forget their names.
Oh, I know.
Eddie Redmayne and Felicity Jones.
Yeah.
They're like flying.
Who made that?
In a hot air balloon.
Didn't someone...
Let me see. It's Tom Harper, which sounds remarkably familiar. Because he made... Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
He's made a bunch of movies I haven't seen.
I might be getting In Fabric.
I would love to talk about In Fabric.
And that has a really high rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
I would love to talk about In Fabric with you.
Well, I'll try to see that. And I'm going to see Honey Boy.
We're definitely getting more into awards movies that are coming out because a lot of awards movies come in at different times because I know you're just now getting Honey Boy. You don't have In Fabric yet. Not that that's going to be an award movie, but, Portrait of a Lady on Fire is getting released next week as well, but I'm probably not going to get that.
And then 2 weeks we get Uncut Gems, Richard Jewell, A Hidden Life.
Yeah, so we're getting into that time. We'll have to figure out what we're going to do, but...
Bombshell. Oh, I forgot Cats, Bombshell, and Star Wars come out on the same day.
Cats is going to get fucked.
It's... Why would you release it? Why would you not release it on Christmas Day? That is the dumbest marketing. Ugh.
I want to read this one tweet. So... Right now, Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, is tracking for 175 to 200 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, like on its opening weekends, which is insane. Cats is tracking to open with 14 to 16 million.
I was going to say like 20 maybe, but that's bad.
And could you imagine, I would imagine that production budget is probably pretty damn big.
I want to guess that Cats cost over 100 million to make without marketing.
I mean, if that's the case, they are so fucked.
I mean, the production, doesn't it look like the same production they'd use on a big blockbuster? Like, it looks...
It's just a decision to release it on the day of Star Wars. Like, I don't know who thought that would be a good idea.
Well, but for the past couple of years, it seems like a lot of these companies have been changing dates and looking at, okay, so this big Disney blockbuster comes out this day. Maybe we should push it to the next week. So many movies have done that. Why would Cats not do that?
Who fucking knows? It's a ballsy choice, that's for sure.
Well, that means that, are you going to be there that week, or are you going to be there Christmas?
I should be in Colorado like 22nd to 29th, but, you know.
I just didn't know if we'd see Star Wars, too. But, I mean, I already have my ticket to that, so.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure out what we're doing next week. But... other than that, I think we're good for this week. Yeah?
Yeah, we can wrap it up.
All right. Well, if you made it this far, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed us talking about Knives Out, The Irishman, and all of Scorsese's movies. Didn't talk about really much superhero movies, and we did talk about Disney there for a little bit, but, we're getting better at not talking about the movies that,
we've done more every week. Compare and contrast this week than diving. So
no deep dives into Disney. So
no need.
No need at all. Anyways, if you enjoyed the episode, go ahead and reach out to us at our Twitters at NoMores and at Tedward120. I think it is time to bid you adieu until next week when we figure out what the hell we're going to be talking about. But until then, it has been The Real Deal.
Thank you, guys.